Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the quantum oscillation readings on her tablet, her dark eyes reflecting the soft blue glow of the screen. Something wasn't right. The Horizon's deep space sensors had detected an anomaly that defied every model in their database. "Captain Rodriguez," she called out, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I think you need to see this." The bridge of humanity's first deep space research vessel fell silent as the captain made her way to Sarah's station. The usual hum of conversations and status reports faded away, replaced by an anticipatory tension that seemed to crackle in the recycled air. "Talk to me, Dr. Chen," Rodriguez said, leaning over Sarah's shoulder to examine the readings. "These quantum signatures," Sarah zoomed in on a particular section of the data. "They're artificial, and they're recent." Before the captain could respond, a new alert flashed across the main view screen. Lieutenant Park's fingers flew across his console as he processed the incoming data. "Contact. We have a vessel at the edge of our sensor range. He paused, double-checking his readings. "It's massive. At least 3 times our size." The crew held their breath as the unknown ship came into visual range. Its sleek, crystalline structure seemed to bend the light of distant stars around it. But something was wrong. Parts of the hull flickered with unstable energy patterns, and its trajectory was erratic. "They're in trouble," Rodriguez said, her voice firm. "Dr. Chen, any insights on their technology?" Sarah was already analyzing the new data. "Their hull appears to be composed of quantum crystalline matrices, highly advanced, but the pattern suggests some kind of systematic failure." A burst of static filled the bridge's speakers, resolving into a series of complex harmonics that made Sarah's teeth ache. The ship's AI attempted to translate, but only managed to decode fragments. Systems failing. Neural interfaces non-responsive. Emergency. "They're going to lose containment," Sarah said, her fingers flying over her console. "Whatever powers their ship, it's becoming unstable." Rodriguez straightened up, her decision already made. "We're answering their distress call. Dr. Chen, you're with the engineering team. Lieutenant Park, bring us alongside, but maintain safe distance until we assess the situation." The next hour was organized chaos. Sarah found herself in the Horizon's airlock with Chief Engineer Patel and his team, wearing their newest generation of EVA suits. As they crossed the void between ships, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to step into a moment that would change human history forever. The alien ship's airlock was a challenge in itself. Without functioning automation, they had to decode its mechanical systems manually. Sarah watched in fascination as Paddle bypassed the neural interface panels entirely, instead tracing the physical mechanisms beneath. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways," he muttered as he worked. "Found it. Manual release sequence, just like we practiced in the simulations. Different tech, same principles." The inner doors opened to reveal a sight that stole Sarah's breath away. 3 alien figures lay unconscious on the deck, their crystalline environment suits reflecting the emergency lighting. Their bodies were humanoid but seemed to shimmer with an inner iridescence, like oil on water. "Life signs are stable," the team's medic reported, scanning the aliens. "But these neural interface ports along their spines, they're unlike anything in our databases." Sarah's attention was drawn to the ship's systems. While the aliens' neural interfaces had failed, the underlying technology was still active. She could see the quantum patterns cycling through the walls themselves. Complex, but not incomprehensible. "Dr. Chen," Patel called out urgently. "The containment field around their power core is collapsing. Without their neural links, they can't stabilize it." Sarah studied the emergency console. The neural interface was dead, but beneath it lay familiar patterns, energy flows, quantum states, cause and effect. Different language, same grammar. "Get me into that panel," she said, pulling tools from her kit. "We might not be able to interface with their technology the way they do, but physics is physics. We can work with this." As she began to bridge connections and reroute power flows, Sarah realized something extraordinary. Humanity's primitive approach to technology wasn't a weakness. It was about to become their greatest strength. Miguel Rivera wiped the sweat from his forehead as he studied the holographic maintenance diagram floating before him. The massive Centauri hub space station stretched around him like a metallic spider web, its crystalline corridors humming with energy he still couldn't quite believe was real. 3 weeks since humanity's official introduction to the Galactic Council, and he still felt like a kid who'd snuck into the world's most advanced laboratory. Maintenance worker Rivera. A melodic voice chimed from behind him. Your presence in this section is unauthorized. Miguel turned to face the station's Assistant Oversight Entity, or AOE, a holographic projection of swirling light that the aliens used for station management. Its form shifted between geometric patterns that humans had learned indicated varying degrees of disapproval. Actually, Miguel held up his work order. I'm here to check the power distribution nodes. Engineering noticed some irregularities in the feedback loops. The AOE's patterns became more angular. Impossible. Our systems are perfect. The neural network would have detected any irregularities. Miguel pulled out his tablet, displaying the data he'd collected. Perfect systems don't show these kinds of power fluctuations. See these harmonic patterns. They're barely within normal parameters, but they're growing. Your primitive scanning devices must be malfunctioning. The AOE dismissed. Please return to your designated maintenance sector. As if to punctuate his point, the corridor lights flickered briefly. The AOE's form wavered, its patterns becoming chaotic before stabilizing. That's the 3rd time this hour, Miguel said. Look, I know I'm just a human maintenance worker, but I've been fixing complex systems since I was old enough to hold a wrench. Something's wrong with the power distribution, and it's getting worse. The AOE seemed to struggle with this information, its patterns cycling through various configurations. The neural interface shows no critical issues. Maybe that's the problem, Miguel muttered, already pulling tools from his belt. You're so busy looking at the neural network data, you're missing the physical signs. He pressed his hand against the corridor wall, feeling the subtle vibrations. His old mentor at the Buenos Aires spaceport would have called this listening to the machine's heartbeat. The station was trying to tell them something, but none of the aliens knew how to listen without their neural interfaces. A sudden surge rocked the station. Emergency lights flashed as the AOE's form scattered into fragments of light before reforming. Critical failure detected in reactor subsection 7, it announced, its usual melodic tone replaced by harsh harmonics. Neural interface connectivity compromised. Unable to implement automatic corrections. Miguel was already running, his boots clanging against the metal deck. Where's the nearest maintenance access point? Please wait for qualified technical specialists. The AOE called after him. Human intervention may cause further damage to precise calibrations. But Miguel had grown up keeping ancient moisture farms running during dust storms back home. He knew the difference between waiting for the perfect solution and acting before it was too late. The maintenance shaft was exactly where he expected. Alien technology might be advanced, but engineering still followed logical patterns. As he crawled through the access tube, he could hear the reactor's containment field harmonics growing more unstable. Talk to me. He called out to the AOA, which had followed him as a diminished light pattern. What are the normal operating frequencies for the containment field? That information requires level 7 neural interface clearance. It responded, patterns showing increasing distress. Miguel pulled his multi-tool from his belt, extending its sensor probe. Then I'll have to do this the old-fashioned way. Sometimes you need to trust your instincts and dirty your hands. The reactor chamber was a symphony of chaos. Crystalline structures pulsing with unstable energy, control interfaces flashing with error messages in alien script. But underneath the advanced technology, Miguel could see the basic principles at work. Energy flow, distribution nodes, feedback loops, different tech, same fundamental physics. As he began bypassing the neural interfaces to access the manual controls, Miguel realized this was exactly why humanity had something unique to offer the galaxy. They hadn't forgotten how to work without perfect systems. Sometimes, imperfect solutions were exactly what you needed to survive. The great archive of the Galactic Council stretched beneath the surface of Centauri Hub, like a vast crystalline labyrinth. Senior archivist Kexley drifted between the towering data stacks, her iridescent form casting shifting patterns on the crystal walls. Something about the latest efficiency reports troubled her. The human influence was becoming impossible to ignore. Ships serviced by human engineers reported 30% fewer critical failures. Research teams with human members solved problems an average of 40% faster. Even the trading networks showed increased adaptability wherever humans established a presence. Most irregular, she whispered, her neural interface struggling to process data that defied standard patterns. Most irregular indeed. Above her, in the station's bustling commerce district, Dr. Sarah Chen was discovering the same pattern from a different angle. She sat in a crowded trading hub, surrounded by holographic displays showing station performance metrics. Your maintenance workers' unconventional repairs shouldn't have worked, Administrator Vexthor insisted, his crystalline form pulsing with agitation. Yet not only did they stabilize the reactor, but the system is now operating at 112% efficiency. Sarah smiled, remembering Miguel's explanation of his jury-rigged solution. Sometimes the best answers come from unexpected directions. Humans have a long history of finding unusual solutions to complex problems. That is precisely what concerns us. Vexthor's form flickered with nervous energy. Your species seems to ignore established protocols, yet somehow achieves superior results. It defies statistical probability. Before Sarah could respond, a commotion erupted at a nearby trading terminal. A sylphid merchant, their gaseous form contained within an environment suit, was arguing with a human trader named James Chen, no relation to Sarah, though the aliens always assumed otherwise. Impossible. The sylphid's translated voice bubbled through their communication system. Your calculations predict market shifts that our neural networks missed entirely. James shrugged, his casual gesture contrasting with the sylphid's agitation. It's not complicated. I just noticed that solar flare activity in the Carina sector affects shipping routes, which impacts luxury goods pricing. Old-school market watching, like my grandmother taught me. Deep below, Kexley accessed another historical archive, her search growing more focused. The pattern she saw in the human integration data matched something she'd seen before, in records so old they predated the current council structure. Her neural interface pinged a warning as she accessed deeply classified files. The resemblance was unmistakable. Another species had once shown similar traits, the ability to work without neural interfaces, to find solutions outside established parameters, to see patterns in chaos. The records of their fate were fragmented, corrupted as if deliberately obscured. But one thing was clear. They had vanished from galactic society almost overnight, their achievements either erased or attributed to others. Back in the Commerce District, Sarah's tablet chimed with an encrypted message. Her eyes widened. The first system crashed during peak trading hours. Throughout Centauri Hub, neural interfaces flickered and died, leaving their users disconnected from the technology they'd relied on their entire lives. Dr. Sarah Chen watched from the Emergency Command Center as the crisis unfolded across the holographic displays. Sector 7 is completely dark, Miguel reported through the comm system, his voice steady despite the chaos. I've got crews implementing manual bypasses, but it's like playing whack-a-mole. Fix one system, 2 more go down. Sarah studied the spread pattern of the failures. It wasn't random. There was an almost organic quality to its progression. The quantum virus is learning, she muttered, recording another set of calculations. It's not just corrupting systems, it's adapting to them. Administrator Vexthor's crystalline form pulsed with distress as more reports flooded in. Impossible. Our neural networks have perfect quantum encryption. They cannot be compromised. Perfect systems are often the most vulnerable. Sarah countered, pulling up data from her original deep space encounter. They don't know how to handle imperfection. Look at this pattern. It's the same quantum signature we detected during first contact, but evolved. The emergency center's doors slid open as Senior Archivist Kexley glided in, her usual ethereal grace replaced by urgent purpose. Dr. Chen speaks truth. I have found records. The ancient species I discovered. They left warnings about exactly this scenario. A new alert blared through the station speakers. The automated trading systems were failing, sending markets into free fall. Through the command center's windows, Sarah could see the once orderly flow of traffic around the station deteriorating into chaos as ship navigation systems began to fail. The virus isn't just affecting the station. James Chen's voice crackled through an emergency channel. I'm getting reports from across the sector. Ships are losing neural guidance, colonies are going dark, and it's spreading faster than quarantine protocols can contain it. Sarah's mind raced, connecting the pieces. The vanished species warning. The quantum signatures. Humanity's unique resistance. It's not targeting the technology, she realized. It's targeting the neural interfaces themselves. The way your species connects to your technology is the vulnerability. Preposterous. Vex Thor's form flickered with indignation. Our neural interface technology is the pinnacle of evolution. Without it, we would be. He paused, patterns showing deep distress. Primitive. Like us, Miguel's voice carried a hint of irony. Because my primitive manual bypasses are the only things keeping life support running in 3 sectors right now. Kexley's form shifted closer to the central display. The ancient records speak of a failsafe, buried in the basic architecture of all neural technology, a quantum virus designed to prevent. She hesitated, unauthorized evolution of the networks. But humanity never developed neural interfaces, Sarah said, excitement building as the pieces fell into place. We kept working with technology through physical means. Our primitive methods aren't just different. They're immune to the virus because they never evolved along the neural pathway. A massive power surge rocked the station. Emergency lights flickered as backup systems struggled to compensate. Through the chaos, Sarah noticed something extraordinary. Every system with a human manual bypass remained stable. Listen, she addressed the command center, her voice cutting through the panic. Your neural networks are compromised, but the underlying technology still works. We can teach you our methods. They're not elegant. They're not perfect, but they'll keep your civilization running until we find a cure. Vex Thor's patterns showed internal conflict before settling into a new configuration. The Council will not easily accept such regression. Better regression than extinction, Kexley countered, her form pulsing with determination. The ancient records are clear. This happened before. That species found a solution, but their discovery was suppressed. We must not repeat that mistake. As if in response, another wave of systems crashed across the station. But in the sectors where Miguel's crews worked, lights stayed on. Life support remained stable. Humanity's primitive solutions were proving to be the galaxy's best defense against a threat they never knew was coming. The emergency command center fell silent as High Regulator Zixtol materialized, his crystalline form darker and more angular than other Council species. Behind him, a squad of enforcement drones hummed ominously. This facility is now under regulator control, he announced, his translated voice carrying harmonic undertones that made Sarah's teeth ache. All humans will cease interference with station systems immediately. Sarah exchanged glances with Administrator Vex Thor, whose pattern showed uncharacteristic defiance. With respect, High Regulator, human maintenance crews are keeping critical systems operational. Removing them would endanger thousands of lives. Your concern is noted. Zixtol's form pulsed with cold authority. But we have evidence that human interference has exacerbated the crisis. Their primitive modifications are destabilizing the neural network. Through her earpiece, Sarah heard Miguel snort. He was still in the maintenance tunnels, hidden from the regulator sensors. Yeah, right. That's why my primitive modifications are the only things still working. The command center's main display flickered, showing more systems failing across the galaxy. But Sarah noticed something odd about the pattern. "That's strange," she whispered to Kexley. "The failures are spreading faster in sectors without human presence." The senior archivist's form rippled with confirmation. "I have found more fragments in the ancient records. The regulator's predecessors. They'd made a choice. Perfection over adaptation. But something went wrong." "Archivist Kexley," Zixtal's tone sharpened. "You have accessed restricted historical data. This is a violation of Protocol 7. There shouldn't be restricted historical data." James Chen's voice came through Sarah's hidden comlink. He was in the trading hub, monitoring market patterns. "I've been analyzing the data gaps in public records. They all coincide with major technological shifts in galactic history." Sarah's tablet vibrated with an encrypted message. Her eyes widened as she read Miguel's findings. The maintenance tunnels had led him to a sealed chamber, older than the station itself. Inside, he'd found hardware that didn't match any known galactic technology. "It's not just different," his message read. "It looks like a hybrid, like someone tried to combine neural interfaces with mechanical systems. And Sarah, it's got the same quantum signature as the virus." A sudden power surge rocked the station. The regulator's enforcement drones wavered, their control fields fluctuating. For a moment, Sarah saw something impossible. Zixtal's crystalline form glitched, revealing a different pattern structure underneath. "You know what the virus really is, don't you?" Sarah challenged, pieces clicking into place. "It's not a weapon. It's a failsafe. The vanished species built it to prevent neural technology from being used to control evolution itself." Dangerous speculation. Zixtal moved closer, his form looming over her. "The virus is clearly a human bioweapon, designed to force your primitive methods upon advanced societies." "Then explain this." Kexley projected a hologram from her archives. It showed the quantum signature of the virus next to neural patterns from 3 sources: the vanished species, current council races, and humans. The correlations were undeniable. "The virus isn't attacking technology," Sarah realized. "It's trying to restore neural interfaces to their original state, before they were modified to." She looked at Zixtal, understanding dawning. To ensure absolute control. The high regulator's form solidified into sharp, aggressive angles. "You understand nothing. Perfection requires sacrifice. The collective must be protected from chaos, from deviation, from primitive impulses." Emergency alerts blared as more systems crashed. But in the maintenance tunnels, Miguel's voice came through clear. "Sarah, you need to see this. The hybrid technology. It's got a message encoded in its base structure. Not in data, in the physical components themselves. Someone left instructions for how to counter the neural modifications. Instructions that only a primitive species could read." Zixtal moved to intercept as Sarah backed toward the exit. "You cannot be allowed to spread this corruption. The regulators have maintained order for millennia. We will not allow humanity's chaos to destroy everything we've built." "Order?" Sarah's hand found the emergency release, or control. "Because from where I'm standing, your perfect order is falling apart, and humanity's chaos might be the only thing that can save it." Miguel Rivera never expected to run a secret school in the maintenance tunnels of Centauri Hub, but necessity had a way of reshaping expectations. He watched as a young Sylphid engineer, her gaseous form contained in an environment suit, successfully rewired a power coupling without using her neural interface. "Excellent work, Zaira," he said, checking the connection. "You've got a natural feel for the current flow." The Sylphid suit lights pulsed with pride. "It feels strange, like learning to breathe differently. But there's something satisfying about physically touching the systems." Above them, the station shuddered as another sector lost neural control. The regulators' attempts to purge human corruption from the systems had only accelerated the virus's spread. But down here, in the underground network of maintenance tunnels that honeycombed the station's structure, A different kind of change was taking root. "Miguel," Sarah's voice came through his secured comm link. "The regulators are sweeping level 12. Your next class needs to move to backup location 3. He quickly helped Zaira pack up the tools. "Remember, teach others what you've learned, but be careful who you trust. The regulators have eyes everywhere." In her makeshift command center hidden within the ancient hybrid technology chamber, Sarah coordinated the growing resistance network. James Chen's trading algorithms had identified safe routes through the station, while Kexley's knowledge of the archives helped them stay one step ahead of regulator patrols. Another medical facility just lost neural support systems, James reported through the secure channel. "But that doctor you trained last week implemented the manual bypass protocols. They didn't lose a single patient." Sarah studied the quantum analysis running on her tablet. The virus's pattern was becoming clearer. It wasn't trying to destroy the neural networks, but to restore them to their original state. The question was, what had they been like before the regulators modified them? A soft chime announced Kexley's arrival through a hidden access panel. The archivist's form flickered with excitement. "I've decoded more of the hybrid technology's physical message. The vanished species, they weren't trying to disconnect from the neural networks entirely. They were developing a way to interface with technology that preserved free will. Which explains why the regulators erased them," Sarah said, pieces clicking into place. "Their version of neural interface technology isn't about efficiency. It's about control." A maintenance panel slid open as Administrator Vexthor entered, his crystalline form dimmed to avoid detection. "The Council is fracturing. More members are questioning the regulators' authority, especially after their latest purge attempt caused 3 habitation rings to lose life support." "How did those sectors survive?" Sarah asked, already suspecting the answer. "Manually trained maintenance crews." Vexthor's patterns showed a mix of humility and admiration, many of whom were taught by your Miguel. "The regulators call it primitive, but there is elegance in simplicity." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent signal from Miguel. "Sarah, you need to see this. One of my students, a quantum communications specialist, she found something in the virus's code. It's not just restoring the neural networks, it's trying to restore the users." Sarah's heart raced. "What do you mean?" "The neural modifications, they don't just control how people interface with technology. They control how people think. But the virus, it's breaking down those controls. People who've learned our manual methods, who've started thinking differently, they're changing." As if to illustrate his point, Zaira spoke up through the comm. "I can feel it. When I work with the systems directly, it's like I'm remembering something I never knew I forgot. We weren't always like this, were we?" In the adjacent chamber, the hybrid technology hummed with increasing energy. Sarah watched as new patterns emerged in its quantum structure, matching the changes they were seeing in those who'd embraced human methods. "No," she said softly, "you weren't. And maybe that's humanity's real gift to the galaxy. Not teaching you to work without neural interfaces, but reminding you how to think for yourselves." The station shuddered again, but this time felt different. Throughout the maintenance tunnels, in hidden workshops and secret classrooms, change was spreading. Not through neural networks or quantum code, but through the oldest interface of all, people learning from people. Deep in the restricted archives of Centauri Hub, Sarah Chen stood before a hidden data crystal that pulsed with ancient power. Senior archivist Kexley's form shimmered beside her, while Miguel and James watched their backs, jerry-rigged scanners alerting them to any approaching regulator patrols. "The encryption is unlike anything in our records," Kexley observed, her patterns showing intense concentration. "But look at the structure. It's a hybrid, like the technology chamber, designed to be decoded both neurally and mechanically." Sarah's fingers flew across her tablet, combining quantum analysis with old-school cryptography. They wanted to ensure their message would survive, even if neural interfaces were compromised. They knew this day was coming. The crystal's surface rippled as their combined efforts began breaking through its security layers. Suddenly, a holographic figure materialized, a being similar to current council species, but with more fluid, natural patterns in their crystalline form. If you're seeing this message, the failsafe has activated. The figure spoke in harmonics that Sarah's translator struggled to process. I am Archive Speaker Tix Hall of the Quantic Evolution Project. What I'm about to share was meant to be our gift to the galaxy, but became our doom. Miguel's scanner chirped a warning. Regulator patrol, 2 levels up, moving this way. When we first developed neural interface technology, the ancient hologram continued. It was meant to enhance our natural abilities, not replace them. But some saw an opportunity for greater control. They modified the interfaces, subtle changes that made users more compliant, less questioning. By the time we discovered the truth, it was too late. The hologram shifted, showing scenes of ancient conflict. The regulators rose to power, promoting their modified interfaces as the path to perfection. Those who resisted were labeled primitive, dangerous. But we knew the real danger was losing our capacity for independent thought, for innovation, for change itself. James's market monitoring algorithm flagged a sudden pattern. Sarah, the virus's spread just changed. It's not just affecting technology anymore. Neural patterns across the station are shifting. The hologram seemed to respond to their revelation. The failsafe wasn't designed to destroy neural interfaces, but to restore them to their original state. Free from control mechanisms, we encoded it into the quantum fabric of the network itself, knowing it would eventually awaken when the right conditions emerge. A species that never developed neural dependency. Sarah whispered. That's what the virus was waiting for. Not to destroy the networks, but to use our different perspective to restore balance. The crystal pulsed brighter as the hologram continued. We couldn't prevent our own erasure from history, but we could plant the seeds of liberation. The hybrid technology you've discovered contains the blueprint for true neural interfaces, ones that enhance rather than control, that work with natural thought patterns rather than suppressing them. Footsteps echoed through the archive as Zira rushed in, her environment suit's lights flashing with excitement. The changes we felt learning human methods, it wasn't just new skills. The virus is using those pathways to restore our original neural patterns. Multiple alarms blared through the station. On Sarah's tablet, system after system showed neural interfaces shifting, changing, returning to patterns that matched the ancient data. But this time, they weren't failing. They were transforming. The regulators knew, Sarah realized. They've been suppressing human contact with galactic society not because we're primitive, but because our unmodified thought patterns could trigger the failsafe. The hologram flickered as it delivered its final message. To those who find this truth, your civilization faces a choice. True advancement comes not from enforced perfection, but from the messy, beautiful process of natural evolution. We seeded the stars with our hybrid technology, hoping that someday a species would emerge whose minds were free enough to remind the galaxy how to think for itself. The archive doors burst open as High Regulator Zixtal appeared, his form dark with rage. But something was different. His perfect crystalline structure was fracturing, revealing more natural patterns beneath. You don't understand what you've done, he thundered, but his voice wavered with uncertainty. The order we created, the perfection we maintained, was a prison. Sarah finished, standing her ground as the ancient crystal's light filled the chamber. And now, everyone can finally see it. 3 months after the archive revelation, as it came to be known, Centauri Hub hummed with a new kind of energy. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, watching ships dock using both neural guidance and manual controls. Below her, Miguel's Maintenance Academy had become an official institution, where beings from across the galaxy learned to combine traditional skills with restored neural interfaces. The latest neural pattern analysis just came in, James said, joining her at the window. His trading algorithms had helped stabilize the galactic economy during the transition. The virus has run its course. The control mechanisms are completely gone. Sarah nodded, remembering the chaos of those first few weeks. How are people handling the change? It's different for everyone. Zyra answered, her environment suit showing more personalized modifications than would have been permitted under the old regime. She had become one of Miguel's most successful instructors. Some embrace it immediately. Others take time to adjust to thinking independently again. The station's systems now ran on hybrid technology, combining the efficiency of neural interfaces with the adaptability of manual controls. In engineering labs across the hub, humans worked alongside other species, each bringing their unique perspectives to solve problems in ways neither could have managed alone. Administrator Vex Thor's report to the new council was approved, Kexley announced, gliding into the room. The former senior archivist now led the effort to restore uncensored historical records. The integration program will be implemented across all major stations. Through the window, they watched a group of former regulators working with human engineers. Their once rigid crystalline forms now showed more natural patterns, and they had proven surprisingly adaptable once freed from their own control protocols. Did you ever imagine this would be the outcome? High Counselor Zixtal asked, joining them. His transformation had been among the most dramatic. After the control mechanisms dissolved, he had become one of the strongest advocates for balanced progress. When humanity first stumbled upon our distress signal, Sarah smiled, remembering that crucial first encounter. We didn't discover anything new. We just helped you remember what you'd lost. The ability to question, to improvise, to see problems from different angles. The ancient species would be proud, Kexley observed, projecting historical images beside the current scene. The similarities in thought patterns were now obvious. They knew that true evolution requires both structure and chaos, tradition and innovation. Miguel arrived with a group of graduates from his latest class. Today's final exam was interesting, he grinned. They had to solve a reactor problem using only neural interfaces, then only manual controls, then find the best way to combine both. And, Sarah asked, every team found a different solution. All of them worked. His grin widened. That's the beauty of free thinking. There's never just one right answer. The station's neural network hummed with activity, but it was different now. Instead of enforcing conformity, it enhanced natural thought patterns. People chose how deeply to interface with technology, creating a spectrum of approaches rather than a single standard. The latest survey results are fascinating, James added, pulling up his data. Sectors using hybrid approaches show a 40% increase in innovation, 60% increase in problem-solving efficiency, and, this is interesting, a 90% increase in cultural exchange initiatives. Because we're finally learning from each other instead of trying to enforce a single standard, Zyra observed, her suit lights pulsing with enthusiasm. Humanity showed us that different isn't primitive. It's essential. Sarah watched as a new ship docked, its design a beautiful fusion of crystalline neural technology and mechanical engineering. We all had something to teach each other. Humans learned to work with neural interfaces without losing our adaptability. You remembered how to think independently without losing the benefits of your technology. And the galaxy? Zixtal asked, his form showing genuine curiosity rather than his old rigid authority. The galaxy remembered something important, Sarah replied, as the observation deck filled with beings of all species, working together in ways that would have been impossible just months ago. That the next step in evolution isn't about becoming perfect. It's about staying free to change, to grow, to question, and to choose our own path forward together.